For years, Ben Shephard has been known as the calm, charming presence who could brighten a room simply by stepping into it. With his friendly smile, warm voice, and effortless professionalism, he became one of the most beloved presenters on television. But behind that polished exterior, a swirl of online chatter had begun to grow. Rumors, speculation, and stories that seemed to appear out of nowhere. And at the center of it all, unexpectedly, was someone who never asked for the spotlight: Annie Shephard. Annie has always kept her life quiet. While Ben's career put him in front of millions, Annie's world remained grounded, private, and beautifully ordinary. She preferred family moments over flashing cameras and peaceful mornings over online drama. But when whispers began circulating about Ben's personal life, Annie found herself pulled into a spotlight she never wanted. At first, she ignored the noise. She had always believed that gossip, like bad weather, eventually passed. But when the conversations grew louder and her name started appearing in headlines she never agreed to, Annie realized silence wasn't protecting her anymore. Fans noticed her absence from public events, and the internet, always eager for a story, began stitching together its own version of reality. Soon, the rumors grew beyond anything she could have imagined. That was when Annie made a decision she rarely made. She chose to speak. But unlike the explosive, dramatic statements people expected, Annie's voice was calm, sincere, and surprisingly humorous. She didn't storm into the public eye with anger. She didn't point fingers. She didn't fuel the fire. Instead, she approached the entire situation with a grace that left everyone stunned. She began by acknowledging the obvious, that she and Ben had seen the rumors too. And then, with a soft laugh, she joked that if half the online stories were true, she must have been living a double life without even realizing it. Her humor, light but confident, instantly softened the tension surrounding the situation. But beneath that humor was something deeper: clarity, honesty, and a small emotional truth that fans had never heard from her before. Annie spoke about the pressure that comes with being connected to someone in the public eye. She explained how easily stories can spread when viewers feel close to a personality they see on screen every day. She understood that curiosity was natural, but she also reminded everyone that curiosity should never be confused with reality. Her message wasn't confrontational, it wasn't defensive, it was human. She talked warmly about the challenges of balancing privacy with public attention. When people admire a public figure, they sometimes forget that there are real families behind the scenes, families who cook dinner together, argue over TV remotes, and laugh at inside jokes only they understand. And as she spoke, something unexpected happened. The tone of the online conversation shifted. People began to see Annie not as a mysterious figure behind a celebrity, but as a person, someone who felt stress, confusion, and even amusement at how wild online stories could become. Her honesty made her relatable, her gentle humor made her likable, and her sincerity made her message powerful. But Annie didn't stop there. She also shared a little glimpse into her relationship with Ben, but in the sweetest, lightest way possible. She described how he had reacted to the rumors, with dramatic gasps, over-the-top expressions, and theatrical performances that made her laugh even on the most frustrating days. According to Annie, Ben took the entire situation as though he were auditioning for a comedy sketch, rather than battling rumors. She said that whenever things got particularly ridiculous, Ben would burst into the room holding his phone and read out the latest exaggerated headline in the most dramatic voice he could muster. It became their new inside joke, a way to turn chaos into comedy. That tiny window into their world, filled with humor and everyday warmth, made thousands of fans fall in love with their dynamic all over again. But Annie also made one point very clear. She wasn't speaking because she needed validation. She wasn't speaking to fight back. She was speaking to remind people that kindness matters and that stories should never be built on assumptions. She explained that relationships, any relationships, go through phases, changes, and challenges.
What matters most isn't what strangers think, but what happens between the people who live those moments together. And in her life with Ben, what mattered most was trust, respect, and the way they laughed through the most unexpected situations. Her voice was calm but strong, gentle but clear. She didn't dismiss people's curiosity, but she encouraged them to look at the human side behind every headline. By the time she finished her statement, something remarkable happened online. Comments shifted from speculation to empathy. People began apologizing for jumping to conclusions. Others praised her for handling the situation with dignity and humor. Many even said they admired her more after hearing her speak than they ever had before. And Ben, well, Ben couldn't help but react, too. In his classic style, he posted a light-hearted comment praising Annie for handling the internet better than he ever could. He joked that maybe she should host the next live show because she clearly had the cooler head. But beneath his humor, fans could tell he meant every word. There was pride in his message, respect, and a subtle sense of relief that Annie's voice had finally been heard. From that moment on, the energy around the conversation changed. Instead of fueling drama, fans shifted to supporting Annie. She became an unexpected symbol of calm truth in a world full of exaggerated stories. And even though she never sought attention, she won the admiration of people who had never heard her speak before. The funniest part? Annie later joked that this would be her first and last public statement, unless someone accused her of stealing Ben's snacks, because that, she said, would be the real scandal. Her humor, light-hearted and perfectly timed, reminded everyone that sometimes the best way to face chaos is with a smile. And now, as the noise around the rumors slowly fades, one message remains, the message Annie hoped everyone would hear. Behind every public figure is a real life, a real home, and real moments that matter far more than the stories written online. Annie didn't just clear the air. She reminded the world that truth doesn't need to shout. Sometimes it only needs to speak once, honestly, calmly, and with a little humor. As fans continue to show their support, one thing is clear. Annie's rare decision to speak has left a lasting impact, one that will be remembered long after the rumors fade. And as for Ben, he's still joking about the headlines, still reading dramatic stories aloud, and still failing to keep the kitchen organized, according to Annie at least. Because behind the scenes, life goes on, real, ordinary, funny, and beautifully imperfect. And maybe that's the part people needed to hear the most.